Welcome to an update for the Federal Milk Marketing Order 33 that is made specifically for Nobis Agri Science. This is Dr. Lawrence Jones, and I'm recording this on the 4th of February. Now, one of the problems of doing once a month videos is you never know when to begin and end. And I started this about 4 days ago, and I kept telling myself, if I wait one more day, I can get you some better information. And that became 2 days, 3 days. So finally, I'm going to try and get this out today. So I'm going to cover kind of the three main things that we normally do, which is your Order 33 prices. We're going to look a little bit deeper into the federal milk marketing proposals, and then the state of the market, in particular, some information about the tariffs. So we'll start with the Order 33 prices. The statistical uniform price was $20.51, which was actually down from last month. But historically, overall pretty good prices except for this 2022 timeframe. So we had the December contract that will actually have the January one tomorrow. But across the last 6 months, that actually dropped about 77 cents. So for quite a while, we were in the situation where it was always going down, and very much what I call a bear market. Then we got into this bullish market, but now we've kind of slipped back into this again of it 6 months out. If you were sold the milk, it would have been a good thing. You would have hated yourself, however, here, through the late summer, because this contract was as high as 22.50. And that's kind of reflected in this emotion index. This popped up a little bit, and we've been out of this whole thing since about May of last year. There's no doubt that this January contract is going to have quite a bit of emotion in it. So right now we're looking at the real-time Class 3 and Class 4 values across the next year or so. We've got the 1918 for Class 3, 2009 for Class 4, and Class 4 is going to be leading Class 3 all the way through. They touch a little bit here in February, but more or less Class 4 is going to be the stronger one. And if we look out at the 50-50 blend, and again, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this after we get into the new federal milk marketing orders, that's the higher of. I'm going to have to think that through a little bit. But right now it's suggesting that 2025 numbers are going to be down about 31 cents. And people have been asking me what I thought, and I said down a little bit, and I think 31 cents is the number we're going to start looking at between that and probably 50 cents. This is your Class 3 production for Order 33. You had been depooling quite a bit back here in 2020. It more or less got out, but then we did depool for a couple months. However, for December, we really should not have been depooling Class 3. We should have been depooling Class 4, which was $20.74 versus $18.62 for Class 3. And more or less, we did depool all of the Class 4. There are only 2.3 million pounds in the order for December. But one of the things that's for sure is that fat tests are continuing to go up. You guys were at 442 a year ago. You're 425, which is a significant uptrend. And what we're seeing is both the higher highs and higher lows. So this is very much an uptrending channel. And I would actually say that this month was out of the channel a little bit. Protein's not quite the same, but you were up 338 versus 330 last year. The bottom has been coming up a little bit, but the top has not. So this is probably more management, heat abatement, and some of these kinds of things that's keeping the protein from dropping as much in the summer months. But overall, we've not been able to raise the overall value, but this current time period is outside of that recent trend. So we covered the federal milk marketing proposals in depth last month. The only thing I'm going to comment is they were actually released on the 17th of January into the Federal Registry. And the only thing that really came out there that was different is they did set the timeline, and it started June 1st, except that they were going to change the skim values on December 1st. So it's going to be implemented in 2 stages. Again, we'll look at these contracts out. This drop here in both Class 3 and Class 4 is the change to the new formulas. And I don't have anything after December at this point, but these should actually come up a little bit given the skim changes. And this is what it looks like using the last National Dairy Sales Report of last week. Again, we're going to get another one here tomorrow. but I put in your distribution of milk in your federal order and then put in the values and what was going to happen. So it looks like if everything was held true as of then, it would be about a $1.14 haircut on June, but you're going to gain some of that back and it'll only be down 58 cents after December. So again, we're going to have a significant reduction June through December, and then January on, it should come up a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about the state of the dairy market. There are several things that I think are really kind of overriding everything. Heifers are in short supply, and we're going to have, a really hampered growth. To see this market really add a bunch of cows is going to be hard to believe. Components are strong, while milk per cow is actually a bit stagnant. It appears that milk and fresh cheese are a little tight. However, cream is abundant, and again, that's because of the higher fat percentages. And as a result, butter stocks are actually trending up a little bit, but cheese stocks are actually trending down, which is interesting. And then we've got several plant expansions underway, which we've been talking about for almost a year now. So here are our cow numbers for the last milk production report. We're up 3,000 cows from a year ago, so very little change. There was a dip down and then a little bit of a peak, but I think a lot of that is just noise in the USDA system. But we're 9.35 million cows at this point. With this and the slaughter data, we can actually estimate the number of replacements, and I've got it at 0.72 replacements per cow, which means that our total turnover rate is going to be like at 36%. That includes dead, so calling is going to be more in that 30% range. And here is the slaughter data, and interesting that we started slaughtering a few more cows, but to me that completely makes sense because you can't slow down slaughter forever. You're going to have older cows, your do-not breeds are going to pile up, and so in fact we're about 2,000 more than we were a year ago. And I've got a rolling number that I think we're kind of bottoming out at this 29% total turnover rate. So I said milk per cow, it seems to be a little bit stagnant. We were on this tremendous uptrend all the way through about 3 years ago, and now we've just, very much actually been flat or down just a little bit. We just got with the agricultural prices, the fat percentage, and we look at the long-term trend. This fat was a 4.46 in the entire nation. That is just unbelievable, and we've just gone up significantly. From 3 years ago, we've changed that trend. Daily production has more or less been down a little bit. Again, here's our long-term trend. We were just creeping up every year, and then we just started into this downward trend, and that's got to do with milk per cow and, of course, the number of cows. Every Friday, USDA releases the fluid and milk report that kind of gives us an idea of how available milk is. So in the upper Midwest, the basis on spot loads is from $1 under to $1 over, which is pretty balanced. And our cream multiples are 1.22. Now the one for the low range dropped quite a bit this week for all classes, but more or less these cream multiples have been hanging in, somewhere a little bit north of 1.2. So we look at these butter stocks. Again, we had a long uptrend and then we kind of broke it, but we're actually trending up, but a little bit slower here in the last couple years. And I think the reason is just there's more fat. So unlike cheese, which is coming down, when you have more fat, you just keep putting more butter into cold storage. Cheese stocks have just been coming down. Again, here's our long-term trend. Starting 3 years ago, we've really pulled these down. We were up to 1.5 billion. Now we're down to 1.3 and change. And part of the discussion is, why has this happened? And I think there are multiple reasons as to why this is happening. But the biggest one that I'm hanging my hat is the forward trend in cheese. So right now, this is the forward curve for cheese prices. And if we look at wanting to pull this cheese out at $1.92, that means we've got to get it in under $1.86 if we think it takes 6 cents to put it in and pull it out. So nowhere in here are you going to want to willingly put cheese into cold storage. You'd rather put it on the spot market. Big deals are always being made of these cheese plants coming online. They're coming on a bit slower, and so the question is, where's the milk going to come? And part of what I think is happening, or at least that's what DFA is saying, is that they're expecting cows to begin migrating towards these plants. And so we'll see cow numbers come up, in western Texas and Kansas, where we might see cow numbers drop somewhere else. But there's also fluid plants that are coming in. There's a couple Walmart plants under development, a Fairlife plant under development. And so I'm not entirely sure, where the milk will come for all of this, but I'm sure the fluid plants will pull it away from everything else. And then these cheese plants will try to grab whatever is left. This is the 2.5 weeks of spot cheese, and this is actually accurate as of a few minutes ago. I went ahead and got that printed out. The question is, are we going to hang in this $1.80 to $1.90 range as a spot trade? So part of what's been happening here is we have blocks fell out of bed here a week and a half ago, and that was Wisconsin Dairy State just selling a lot of cheese. And then the blocks came back up. They hit this high around the $1.93, and then the announcement of the tariffs hit, and they come falling back down. And then today they actually came up a little bit. And so the question, that we've been discussing this afternoon, are we actually in more like a $1.85, $1.95 kind of trading range? And that does actually cover up most of the data. So that's probably where we're going to keep an eye on, is $1.90 plus or minus 5 cents as a choppy range. Now, of course, barrels are below this at this point. But if we plot out the long-term cheese price, we've built this new channel here. It's like from $1.80 to $1.95, somewhere in there. And right now, we're actually in a little bit of a sideways trade. And you could actually argue that it's down slightly. But again, until we pop out of this channel, I'm not expecting anything significant to happen. Whey's been under a lot of pressure. We're down to 62 cents on the spot market. This was the last National Dairy Sales report at about 73. So we've pulled well over 10 cents off of the whey price, which is going to be 50 cents on the class 3 price. Non-fat dry milk had been hanging over top of the global dairy trade, but now we've had a convergence. So we had a global dairy trade today, and non-fat dry milk has kind of been trending down. Again, historically, it's been about 20 cents below, which has allowed us to export. So I would suspect that we're getting ready to begin exporting some non-fat dry milk again. And I said we did have a global dairy trade. It was up 3.7% session over session. So that's the last two. But in fact, you can see that this is a fairly significant uptrend here. So I've coded these as butter that we have a good chance of exporting 321 versus 243. Cheddar is a little tight at 228 with the spot at $1.90. That's 28 cents. That's really on the edge. And non-fat dry milk has only got 3 cents difference with the world market, so we're probably not exporting that at this point. We'll talk about the tariffs for just a minute. And one of the first things that I went back and calculated is how big of a trading partner is Mexico. So in November, we made about 1.15 billion pounds of cheese, and we exported 87 million. So that was about 7.7%. Turns out Mexico represented about 34.5 million of that. So they represent about 39% of our total exports. And if we had retaliatory tariffs, which we're not going to have now, it would have mean that our exports might drop, to like 4.7, where a typical export is 6.9. So that would have been fairly significant. So on Friday, exactly what happened was with the announcement of the tariffs, the buyers on the spot market just stepped away and allowed cheese to come down 5.75 cents on blocks and 5.5 cents on barrels. And so the buyers just said, whoa, we gotta see what's going on here. Now, obviously, they stepped back in a little bit today. And so what did it mean for overall milk prices? This is the April contract. There's lots of things on this, but more or less, if you follow these candles, you'll see what the trade has been doing. You can see how choppy it's been. What these other lines are called Fibonacci bottoms and tops, and then retracements. And so this would be a 50% between the two. So if we look at this April contract prior to the announcement of the tariffs, we were trading about 1980. That came out and immediately fell to 1870, so about $1 off of that April contract. And now that's kind of come back, but it's not back to that 1980 yet. We're about 1960 and change here as it's closed today. Tariffs also have an impact on grains. Again, this is as of Friday, but week over week, soybean meal dropped the most at $2.60 a ton. Overall, our P index, which is 8 pounds of cornmeal, 8 pounds of soybean meal, is still under $2, so that's very favorable for producing milk. But one of the ones that I want to keep an eye on is this corn, because we've really kind of come out of this channel here. We'd set this about 175, and I say we've really popped out of that. We were low as 143 or 144, somewhere back in here. So hopefully everybody's pretty well locked up their corn prices, because this has just been climbing. Not going to spend much on weather other than say the drought monitors. I got a few people kind of nervous right now. The order 33 looks like it's fairly dry. Entire Michigan is either abnormally dry, through a severe drought, all the way into northern Indiana and northwestern Ohio there. But a lot of the western corn belt, if we don't get significant snow and moisture here in the spring, is going to be under a lot of pressure for a drought. And of course, the hot spot is down here in southwestern Texas, which is just a highly exceptional drought. All right, so that's what I have for this week. As I say, I kind of got delayed because every day I kept thinking I'll give you more information if I just wait one more day, but I finally wanted to get this out. But I think we're definitely going to be in a very choppy sideways trade until we get a few of these things sorted out as to whether this tariff threat is going to be a long-term issue or whether it's over, and whether we're going to have enough cows to meet this plant demand. All right, I hope everybody has a great week, and I'll get you another report next month.